Be honest with me. Be straight with me, Mark. Be a man. Tell me what happened here.
Nothing more than what I told you.
Nestled in the heart of Chicago lies the enchanting village of Pleasant Prairie. In 1998, an unexpected event unfolded. This is the tragic tale of Julie Jensen, born Julie Carroll Griffin on February 26, 1958. Growing up as the only daughter among 5 brothers in a loving and well-cared-for family, Julie held family values close to her heart and had profound respect for her elders. Described as gentle, easygoing, sincere, and cheerful, Julie excelled academically throughout her schooling, and after graduating from high school in 1976, she embarked on a nursing program at the University of Wisconsin Parkside while working part-time at a department store. However, Julie soon realized that nursing wasn't her true calling and made the decision to leave the program. In 1981, fate intervened and Julie crossed paths with Mark Jensen, a fellow student at the university. Love blossomed between them, and they exchanged vows in 1984, settling down in Pleasant Prairie's Carroll Beach neighborhood. While Mark pursued a career in finance, Julie dedicated herself to raising their 2 sons, David and Douglas. Tragedy struck on December 3rd, 1998, when Mark called emergency services to report that Julie was unresponsive. The arrival of the police unveiled a devastating sight: Julie's lifeless body in their bedroom. The initial autopsy failed to determine the cause of death, but a subsequent toxicology report revealed that she had been poisoned with ethylene glycol, a substance commonly found in antifreeze. Initially, investigators suspected suicide, considering Julie's history of depression and a troubled marriage. However, as they delved deeper into the couple's lives, they unearthed hidden secrets that would drastically alter the course of the investigation. Cracks in Mark and Julie's marriage had begun to surface in the early 1900s, following the birth of their first child. Julie experienced postpartum depression and sought therapy. She even admitted to a brief affair with a coworker, straining their relationship further. Moreover, the Jensen household was plagued by anonymous harassment through explicit photos and disturbing phone calls. Despite their marital struggles, Mark developed a close relationship with another coworker named Kelly Labonte, with whom he engaged in an affair concealed from their spouses. As Mark grew more distant from Julie, she sensed the change and confided in her friends about her fears. She even harbored concerns that Mark might plot to harm her instead of seeking a divorce. However, her unwavering dedication to their children compelled her to remain loyal. Julie's emotional state continued to deteriorate, leading her to seek treatment from Dr. Richard Borman, the Jensen family physician. Recognizing her anguish, Dr. Borman prescribed medications such as Paxil and Ambien to alleviate her depression and sleep difficulties. In the weeks preceding Julie's death, Mark shared with several individuals the details of her depression, her thoughts of suicide, and even her significant weight loss. While the investigation progressed, more unsettling incidents came to light. Julie's brothers were taken aback when Mark disregarded Julie's final wish even in death. Julie had expressed her desire to be buried alongside her deceased brother Richard, but Mark chose to cremate her without informing the family. Mark displayed no signs of remorse, and his behavior during Julie's funeral raised eyebrows. Witnesses alleged that he exhibited no grief, even laughing and making jokes. Additionally, neighbors claimed to have witnessed Mark discarding items that appeared to belong to Julie in the garbage just a week after the funeral. Suspicion mounted, and all fingers pointed towards Mark Jensen. However, mere suspicion was insufficient to prove someone's guilt in a court of law. Detectives knew they needed concrete evidence to build a case against Mark, and unexpectedly, that evidence arrived in the form of a letter from beyond the grave. Ted and Margaret White, Julie's next-door neighbors and friends, handed a sealed package to the authorities. They explained that Julie had entrusted them with the package for safekeeping shortly before her death, instructing them to deliver it to the police if anything had happened to her. Inside the package was a letter signed by Julie and a photograph of a shopping list written on Mark's business planner. The letter was shocking. It also alluded to drugs and syringes, but the most incriminating aspect was her denial of ever contemplating suicide, driven by her profound love for her children. She also expressed her belief that Mark had never truly forgiven her for her extramarital affair in 1990. This letter, famously referred to as the letter from the grave, captivated national attention. Despite the damning nature of the letter, the detectives kept its existence concealed for the time being. Additional pieces of evidence surfaced during the investigation. Disturbing internet searches were discovered on the Jensen family computer, including topics related to poisoning. Julie had also left voicemails for police officer Ron Kosman, who had previously investigated the harassing phone calls and photos in the 1990s. In those voicemails, Julie warned that if anything happened to her, Mark should be investigated. Forensic reports determined that Julie Jensen's cause of death was asphyxiation and poisoning. Bruises on her rib muscles indicated asphyxiation, and crime scene photos revealed a pillow placed over her head. Detectives believed that Mark had been poisoning her over several days, but accidentally suffocated her. The evidence continued to accumulate, and finally, 5 months after Julie's death, investigators brought Mark Jensen in for questioning. During the interrogation, Mark was confronted about his lack of action in assisting his mentally unstable and bedridden wife. Detective Paul Ratzberg also inquired about the peculiar position of Julie's body on their marital bed. Despite the presented evidence, Mark vehemently denied all allegations and refused to confess. Ratzberg attempted to provoke a confession by bringing up Mark's extramarital affair and troubled marriage, but Mark remained resolute in proclaiming his innocence. The uncertainty surrounding Julie's death created divisions among those close to Mark and Julie. Mark's parents, Dan and Florence, believed that Julie had planned to frame Mark for her murder. They argued that Julie, being a trained nurse, had knowledge of drugs and poisons. They suggested that Julie had mistakenly consumed a small amount of ethylene glycol, resulting in her unintentional death. They believed that Julie wanted it to appear as though Mark had poisoned her in order to gain custody of their children. Mark's family strongly maintained his innocence. Meanwhile, Mark appeared to be moving forward with his life. Years later, after numerous uncertainties and extensive investigations, prosecutors finally filed first-degree murder charges against Mark Jensen. The case became a highly debated and closely watched trial, with the letter from the grave as a significant piece of evidence. Mark Jensen was taken into custody on March 20th, 2002, facing charges of murder prior to his trial. The legal disputes surrounding the admission of a letter and the voicemails as evidence endured for numerous years. In 2007, the Wisconsin Supreme Court declared the letter admissible, asserting that there existed sufficient probable cause to believe that Mark had obstructed the witness from testifying, thereby waiving his right to confront Julie. Subsequently, the trial commenced on January 7, 2008, at the Kenosha County Court. Throughout the trial, Mark's defense attorney, Craig Albee, depicted Julie as an emotionally disturbed and despondent woman who had taken her own life, falsely implicating her husband out of revenge. Albee questioned Julie's motivations, highlighting her apprehensions and underscoring her failure to leave Mark or safeguard their children's well-being. He proposed that the disturbing internet searches discovered on the Jensen family computer might have been carried out by Julie herself. These arguments captivated the jury, but the prosecution presented a compelling case. Prosecutor Robert Jamboy portrayed Julie as a tormented wife and argued that Mark possessed both motive and opportunity to murder her. He emphasized Mark's awareness of Julie's anguish and insinuated that Mark had researched her symptoms online prior to her demise. Witnesses, including Julie's neighbors and friends, testified to her fear of her husband. One chilling testimony came from Edward Klug, Mark's former colleague, who claimed that Mark had discussed poisoning his wife during a conversation at a bar shortly before Julie's death. The prosecution called 2 inmates, David Thompson and Aaron Dillard, as witnesses. Thompson alleged that Mark had planned to make Edward Klug disappear and even placed a call requesting money, although the specifics of the plan were never disclosed. Dillard testified that Mark had confessed to poisoning and suffocating his wife. Mark's defense team accused the inmates of lying, but the jury seemed persuaded. The findings of the medical examiner aligned with Dillard's testimony, indicating that asphyxia and poisoning were the causes of Julie's death. After presenting all the evidence and testimonies, Craig Albee reiterated in his closing statement that Mark was innocent, suggesting that Julie had taken her own life due to her mental instability. Prosecutor Robert Jamboy, however, accused Mark of deliberately murdering his wife and callously waiting for her demise. On February 21, 2008, the jury delivered a guilty verdict. Jamboy portrayed Mark as a cold-blooded individual. Subsequently, on February 27, 2008, Mark Jensen was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Nevertheless, the case was far from concluded. After years of appeals, Mark Jensen obtained a retrial, as the Wisconsin Supreme Court determined that Julie's letter should not have been admitted as evidence due to its violation of Jensen's Sixth Amendment rights. The second trial commenced on January 9, 2023, without the inclusion of the letter, and the prosecution focused on other evidence indicating Mark's guilt, including the disturbing internet searches. On February 1, 2023, the jury once again found Mark guilty, and he received a life sentence without the possibility of parole, providing some closure for Julie's loved ones. The tragic events forever shattered the lives of their two sons, who lost a parent to violence at the hands of the other. The unimaginable emotional trauma they endured encompassed the loss of their mother and the realization that their father was responsible for her death. The devastation caused by the actions of one individual upon an entire family is undeniably heart-wrenching. And that's all for now. Thank you all for watching this video and joining us on this exciting journey. We hope you found the content informative, engaging, and enjoyable. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell icon so you never miss an update from us. Thanks for watching.